Hey everyone, welcome back to our next step of the Quarantine Pods. It's been a bit, but we're really happy to be back up and running. Happy that you guys are still watching as well. And of course, we're back with our line of guests finally. So here tonight, we've got Harrison Lawrence, who's had plenty of experience with Melbourne Webfest, and he's going to be telling us a fair bit about how you can get working in the industry if you feel like web series are your thing. And of course, our regular guest, our one and only Damien Giulietta. How are you going, Damien?
I'm pretty good, Pete. How are you?
Surviving. I still live with you, so things are a bit depressing, but I'm dealing with it.
Yeah.
I found ways to cope that are definitely doing the job for me.
Yeah, I have to find different ways, but we'll get on.
Fantastic. And Harrison, welcome to the Quarantine Pods. How does it feel to be in the house of 88 to 1?
It's a pleasure to be here. It's fantastic to be on the podcast. I only found out about this like 24 hours ago, but fuck it, it's good to be here.
We are so efficient at this, aren't we?
Exactly.
So we'll start with a little bit about yourself. Obviously, I've worked with you for a fair bit, but you're here tonight because of your experience, particularly with the web series, which is something Damien and I haven't done much of. We've certainly had some exposure to it, but we're looking forward to you giving both us and our viewers a bit more insight.
Yeah, so Webseries is basically any online content that is in short form. So basically, generally they run in various different formats. Usually the most common ones I've seen is 6x10, so 6 episodes of 10 minutes. You can also run shorter ones. There's a lot of shit that's made for Facebook and Instagram that's significantly shorter. We actually had a series 5 years ago called Artistically Challenged. It was done completely through Instagram stories. So
that sounds agonizing.
Each episode had to be 15 seconds or less, and they made I believe it was about a 15-minute like series out of it. So it was a lot of content.
15-minute series.
Yeah.
Isn't that... I can't even do the math on that right now.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I think there was something like 60 episodes involved with it, and they released basically daily for a 60-day span. So you can do a lot of creative stuff like that with web series that you can't do with traditional medium, which is where a lot of the interesting stuff comes from. So just to explain sort of what my background is.
Please do.
So for 5 years now, I've worked with Melbourne Webfest in various different formats. So I started off as an intern, and then in my second year, I moved up and started doing a bit more of the managerial stuff. Before, in my third year, I became what's called content director. So I was basically overseeing like the sort of the look and feel of a lot of the content that came out of the festival. And that also allowed me to be one of the sort of the judges in the initial selection phase of the web series content. So in the past, like 3.5 years.
Moving on up.
Yeah, I was very career hungry. So in the past 3.5 years, I've seen so many web series that I've actually lost count of it. And so many of them is really good. Some of them need a little bit of work, but for the most part, it was all really solid.
Oh, let's take it back to the start even. So how do you even get involved in the web series industry in Melbourne Webfest? Like where did you start realizing, oh yeah, I like film? We've done a lot about Damien's experiences there.
Yeah, so the way that I actually got involved in web series is actually through the internship program that was done at the university I went through. Because basically growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I turned like 14 or 15. They're like, you need to make a decision now, you all shit. And I'm like, okay.
High school.
Yep, I'll do film. So I really gravitated towards that. I like doing editing, and that's sort of like the trade that I wanted to get into. We'll get more on that later. So I went to university to do that. Didn't end up too well in terms of that field, but one of the internship programs that they offered was at Melbourne Webfest. So basically you start putting together the whole festival, just doing a lot of the sort of the groundwork stuff, doing a lot of the video content and a lot of the fun stuff.
Was it interning like most of the other industry stuff where you just become a coffee bitch, or did they make you do a bit more?
We actually did a bit more. So basically,
Lucky.
So we, as interns, you're responsible for one of the 3 sort of trailers that comes out for the festival. So they basically split them into different genres. So there was drama, comedy, animation, and non-fiction. You got to pick one of those, and you got to work on basically a 2-minute trailer that advertised everything that was going to be in the festival that year. And basically it was down to you to figure it out. So you've got a lot more hands-on experience. And, you know, if you're working on a set and demo, it's just like, yeah, go get me a latte, bitch.
Yep. And he does say bitch a lot. How about your perspective there, Damien? Do you find that it's around 14, 15 years old that a lot of people are forced to make their decision if they want to be in film or not these days? Do you think that's a good age?
Film, sure. I think most, like anything, I think the schools put pressure on you, don't they? 14, 15, you have to know your whole fucking future.
I was one of the lucky people. I actually really, really liked media at the start, and I knew I wanted to be in it. Not particularly what to do.
Yeah, the beauty of film is, I mean, you can be any age, really, and kind of go, I want to get into it, you know what I mean? But I think at school, you still got the pipe dream because you don't know what it is. Like most people, you're probably the same. Like you're 14, 15 at school, you don't know what filmmaking is. You just know, oh yeah, you see what you see in
like the
Hollywood.
movies.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Action, cut. That's all it takes to do it. And then it's not until you go through this film school and uni and shit like that you realize the amount of roles and careers that are actually inside the one industry.
And they've probably differed slightly from when you came through to when we went. We will touch on that a bit later. But yeah.
Just touching on something you mentioned there, where it's like you can be any age to be in the film industry. I've actually noticed a lot of the filmmakers in the web series space are actually a lot older in life when they sort of decide that they want to make a web series. Well, not always the case. I reckon there's probably about a 50-50 split of people that are young and looking to make content and people that are old and have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And this is like a real good sort of avenue to do it.
Well, I think also on that is the web series is a very interesting platform because it's only really been around for 7-8 years. Like around 2011, 2010, 2011 when kind of web series became a thing.
Well, once national internet bandwidth was finally able to handle it.
It's debatable because you could even go back as far as like 2003 with stuff like Red vs. Blue that came out of Rooster Teeth Productions. Stuff like that you could argue was like one of the earlier proprietors of web series. And even then before that, there was stuff.
Well, Rooster Teeth even tried to do the Sims one straight afterwards, the Strangerhood, but didn't really pick up as much because...
I think, but back then as well, it's a platform that people aren't sure what it was. You know what I mean? Then the last 10 years becomes a common... Because now web series is a common platform.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas in 2003 and onwards was not really that common.
We even know corporations that have funded web series as advertising.
But I think the other thing as well is when you're a bit older and you kind of go, oh, maybe I want to change career paths and get into film, everything's at your disposal. I think when you go to film school, they don't worry about web series. I think they kind of go straight into film, make short films, short documentaries, things like that. I think that's what they press on. So you probably find that young filmmakers are coming out thinking about film more so than web series.
They are starting to change though, because I know for Latrobe University, in the past 3 years, they've actually changed their program a bit to sort of cater more towards web content. They actually started a specific subject in their third year called web series. And I know RMIT is also doing a very similar thing where one of your final assessment pieces is to make short form content. I think you have to do a minimum 3 episodes of that, so like it's 3x4. So basically averages out to be a 12-minute short, but you got to do it in the web series format. So you basically got to have like 3 sets of 3-act structure.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad because, like, in our year, we had like 5 short films that we made, and if you do them, like, they'll have to be an overarching thing that slowly turned into one really quality short. You get a bit more collaboration between the entire class that way.
Well, I know for a fact that one of the web series that appeared in one of our festivals, I believe it was 2018 one, they actually originally came up with it as basically like a 50-minute short film. But then what they did was they actually split it into a bunch of like 10-minute like episodes. And they actually did it in a way that they actually shot extra stuff. So if they wanted to, they could do it as a short or they could do it as a web series. And they would splice in different scenes depending on what format they eventually sort of settled with.
Keep it versatile.
Yeah. And it also didn't really cost them much extra because like they basically just had to change like maybe 2 lines in the script to basically have like that little plot hook that got you into the next episode, or they would have it transition in the scene a lot more smoothly if it was a short form or versus a web series. So it was very dynamic in that way.
That's a challenge in a way, isn't it? It's almost like when you do web series, almost you need that hook if you want to keep it. Depends on what, obviously every content's different, but if it's kind of a comedy punch, every episode's a bottle episode kind of feel, then it doesn't really matter what you do. But if you're trying to go for that kind of, continuous story, you want to make sure that you're leaving each episode as a lead in for the second.
Yeah, but I guess you could also argue that the same thing you got to do with short film because, the attention span of people is getting really, really short these days. So, like, if they're not watching something that's on TikTok that's like 20 seconds long, it's really hard to grab their attention. So,
Vine would be perfect these days if it didn't go under, simply with the 7-second limit.
Well, that's one of the things, and this again is my opinion. Like coming up with shorts, it was almost like. If you really want to get, like, if you look at most festivals, like something like Tropfest, right? Let's use Tropfest as the example. That was the kind of like the be all. I don't know much about if it's still. I think is it dead now? Tropfest.
It exists in some capacity.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be. It
sort of went under for a year there, but then it came back.
So. Yeah, it almost went dead in the water. But like even 5-6 years ago, Tropfest was the be all end all. If you wanted to get into that, you need like a 4 or 5 minute punchline, almost like a joke. You know what I mean, with that strong punchline, because that's what people want to watch. They don't want to watch like a 9-minute drama. You know what I mean? If it's slow, you know what I mean? And that's the hard part is because filmmakers may use that to train themselves to, be filmmakers, but that's not what audiences necessarily gel with. You know what I mean? They'll sit there, they'll settle in for a 2-hour drama, but do they really want to settle in for a 17-minute one? You know what I mean? That's kind of what you're looking at.
And that's the really huge part with like pretty much all medium these days. If you're going to put it online, because there is the option to just like jump into a different tab or whatever at any point, you've really got to capture the audience's attention. If you don't manage to get them in the first 3 minutes, then that's it. You've lost an audience member.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's plenty going on clearly in the industry, and a lot of it's developing at the moment. And what was your experience coming out through internship to eventually being a judge, and how it's developed even in the last couple of years?
Well, I think the really interesting thing that I noticed sort of coming in is because Melbourne Webfest has been going since 2013. So I came in on the third year of it, and that was sort of when it was really starting to take off. So the first festival, the iteration of that was basically like, I think only 20 series got in. It was a one-day event, and it was a lot of people, as the festival creator, Steiner Ellingson, said. It was just a bunch of people going around giving each other high fives. The year that I came,
start somewhere.
Yeah, the year that I came in, though, it was sort of the year that stuff like ABC iView and SBS On Demand were actually starting to fund series, and we actually had a few series come in directly through those platforms. And they actually started to give a lot more sort of focus on the web content. And they actually started paying attention to us, which led into, in 2016, they actually funded one of our events, which was a pitching competition where you go in, you pitch an idea for a web series. And if they like it, they'll actually give you, I believe it was 10 grand towards like workshopping and development for the script. And they also flew you out to Marseille Webfest, which is like the premiere, is basically like the Cairns of like Webfest festivals in the world.
Sounds French. I can dig it.
Yep. So sort of coming into that and sort of being on the ground level when it started to get like bigger and bigger was actually really interesting because it actually gave me a new perspective of like, and I can imagine like you two being like old fucks or whatever would have been like,
oh yeah,
you got to make a feature. That's basically the be on end all. But like coming into it there, it's like you don't necessarily have to go into a feature if you don't want to. You can make short form content and eventually lead that into a TV series.
Nice. So, well, you mentioned a couple of other ones in France and stuff. So, what does an organisation like Melbourne Webfest do for the Australian film industry?
So, we're up until last year, we were the only like web series festival in the entirety of Australia.
Yep.
Sydney Webfest started up last year, and I believe they were planning on doing it this year until coronavirus came and fucked everyone's shit up.
Yep.
Fantastic. So basically, like in terms of like web series content, we were like the main way of sort of showcasing like the people that are out there trying to like make proper film, not just like little skits and crap that you see on Facebook, but like actual proper. Like,
well, the moment you're going for a series, you have to have more than one joke.
Yeah, exactly. So we were like sort of putting a lot of emphasis on showcasing that, and that's why in our selection we actually had like a sort of a split on like each of the different genres. So we would have an Australian like comedy and then an international comedy.
Nice.
And we sort of tried to make it so like we weren't giving too much focus to Australian series. We still wanted to make it like sort of like exclusive in a way, just so we kept the quality of content high, but we also wanted to showcase what Australian content creators are doing. And a lot of that sort of...
Find that there were a lot of content creators making quality? Was it a hard choice to whittle it down?
Well, it's interesting because like a lot of the quality content that we found was actually coming from Australia. Like a lot of the good comedies and a lot of the good dramas, and actually a significant number of the really good non-fictions like all came from Australia.
Hey.
And we even, I believe that for the past, I want to say it's 3 years. I want to say the animation winner... Actually, no, sorry, it was 2 years. The past 2 years, the animation winner was an Australian, and then the one in the first year that I was there was also an Australian series as well.
Represent.
So yeah, Australians are really good at making like good on-one content. I don't know like what the special sauce that they've sort of sprinkled in the series is, but it's really watchable content.
Sure, it's all in our water.
Yeah, probably. But in terms of like the global sort of sphere, so there is actually a thing called the Web Series World Cup, which is basically like gamification of like the festival circuit. So
how's that work?
So at the minute, I believe there's around about 50 festivals that are a part of it. And basically, if you get nominated into it, you'll get like, I believe it's 3 points. If you get any of the category awards, you get an additional like 2 points on top of that for every additional nomination you get. And if you win an award, you get 7 points for that.
And Melbourne Webfest is a participant in this.
Yeah. I believe back a couple of years ago, there was only 7 festivals that were in it. But basically the way it works is that the more like nominations you get in festivals around the world, then the higher you appear on the ranking. And it's a really good way of like going up to a producer and saying, hey, this is like a metric.
We're getting attention worldwide, not just in a particular country or industry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know that one filmmaker, Sally McLean, she actually used that as a pitching point, that we've got this physical metric that we can showcase to you of how well our series did internationally.
That's fantastic. Is there anything similar for that, Damien, in like film or cinema or even shorts? Maybe even acting?
Like a festival World Cup.
Yeah, where you can use multiple festivals to slowly build up a rank. Because I think that...
Not that I know of, not in that kind of thing. I don't think that exists for like short film, feature film kind of thing. And most people are just putting in festivals to get their ribbons.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But like it's... Nothing. Again, I'm not really big on the festival circuit. I don't really follow the festival circuit much.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything similar to that.
I mean, it makes sense on the web series front because it is a kind of medium that
it's global.
There's not. You wouldn't. I mean, you might disagree. I don't think there's as many web festivals as there are normal short film or film festivals. You know what I mean?
Good point.
There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of film festivals as opposed to like you said, Melbourne Webfest started in 2013.
Yeah,
and that was the first dedicated web fest in
Australia.
It's not
even 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's only 7 years. It was the first web festival. Whereas you look at short fest, film festivals have been going for decades. You know what I mean?
Trop Fest has been traditional, only got taken down by lack of money and stuff. So
yeah.
No, it's been going. So apart from the gamification, is there any other ways that the global industry comes together, or Melbourne Webfest participates with that?
It's a good thing you segued into that. So the other thing that we do specifically at our festival is that we're partnered up with 8 other festivals. And what will happen is we do a series exchange. So basically, if we are partnered with Berlin Web Festival, so they give us 1 German series, we give them 1 Australian series. For Roma Web Festival, we give them 1 Australian series, they give us 1 Italian series. And basically, it has to come from that festival, has to be from that country of origin. But it's a good way of doing like a sort of...
Do you guys have to chuck the subtitles on it?
We do. Usually, that gets done on their end and that, which is fair enough.
We've been through subtitles with our feature film. It's good fun.
Yeah. Trust me, I've had to go through many a subtitle files.
How much English do you get? And you know what I'm talking about there.
Well, it's funny because the English ones are really easy to fix because you can go through and you can figure those out. The ones that I actually found really hard, there was one series came out 3 years ago that was half done in Korean and half done in English in terms of the actual content of it.
Oh God.
And then the subtitles that we got were actually the exact same. So the Korean stuff had English subtitles and the English stuff had Korean subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see what they were thinking.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea because think about it, if you speak English
you won't need the English things.
Well, you send the same copy everywhere, so that's fine.
Yeah, and that's also the other thing is that you just send the same copy. So going through and sort of correcting that was a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it actually the series was enjoyable enough that it didn't feel like a chore.
Yeah. Definitely worth it. All right, so how's the industry for web series look in a global perspective, not just for Melbourne Webfest? Like, what is there globally outside of Melbourne Webfest at this point? Is there much of an industry, or is it pretty tight-knit still?
So there's definitely a tight-knitness to a lot of the old guard and that. So for example,
you're either in the gamification or you don't exist, or...
Well, kind of. There's definitely big players in the industry. So Enzo Tedeschi is one of the big players that's been around since the very beginning and he comes from Sydney and he's been to various festivals around the world. So he's definitely one of the big players. But then you also got the up-and-comers that are just sort of making their first series or have made their second series that's actually got recognition, et cetera, like that. There's definitely a big global market for it because we've received series from Israel, Argentina. We've received a few Russian. We've received a lot of French, a lot of German, a lot of Italian.
What's your favorite?
In terms of
international? Where do you go? It's from this country. You're like, yes, I'm looking forward to this.
German series are actually really, really good because their comedy is actually it's kind of it's got that really guttural sort of comedic timing to it. Yes. That it's just really fun, and their dramas are so. One of the ones that really sticks out to me in my head is from a few years ago. There was one called Inked, which was just a really harsh and gritty drama, and it starts off with a building full of people getting shot up, and it escalated.
Fun for the whole family,
and it didn't stop. It was just a roller coaster.
Wow! How about that's a question I've never asked you, Damien. When you're looking at other films internationally, is there a particular country where you'll always be thinking, "Oh yeah, I like this one"?
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Japanese horror. I think everyone.
Oh yeah,
into that.
Well, even Western cultures now appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, obviously they remake it, so
pretty much.
But yeah, it depends on what. Everything's a bit different. You know what I mean? Every film, when you kind of when you're in the industry and as a filmmaker, you kind of explore everything. But I think Japanese is probably the more famous, and even not just horror, but some of their crime dramas are pretty good too. So yeah, I'd probably say Japanese.
Yeah, actually, also on that same tangent, like Korean horror, like stuff like I Saw the Devil and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ooh, it just really gets under your skin and makes you feel uncomfortable for the next few days.
Oh, yeah, Korean cinema's been blowing up at the moment. I mean, cleaning up Oscars as well.
Yeah.
Parasite. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's get a bit back closer to home then. As far as what Australia has to offer, you touched on this a bit more with animation and stuff. Can you just elaborate on the kind of things Australia has to offer from a web series perspective?
Yeah, so from a web series perspective, like a lot of our series are just really high content, like high quality content. A lot of the writers just know how to do comedy, or they know how to do drama, or they know how to do nonfiction. I know it sounds weird writing nonfiction, but it's something that they know how to.
You need to know how to present nonfiction properly, otherwise.
Documentary is an art form, man.
Yeah.
Fucking art form. Well, it's underrated art form. It's actually more tricky than people think it is.
Yeah, I can actually pinpoint an exact example that Pete might be actually familiar with. You know the solo art trail that sort of happens when you head up towards Mildura Way if you go to the back route? Yeah, so there was a documentary film done as a web series a couple of years back that just covered that. And it didn't just cover the fact that, there's Banjo Patterson painted on the side of the silo. It actually covered the fact that, this town used to have 3 primary schools, but now they're all shut down because the whole town's basically dead. Like the population is less than 10. The milk bar maybe sees 2 people a week.
Oh, wow.
And it was really heartbreaking and just crushing on how destroyed these towns are in a very economical and sort of population sense, but it was also heartwarming because they're we can all come together because we feel.
Well, Australia's always had that great sense of community and being the underdog. So any non-fiction documentary that properly captures that spirit, they're going to nail it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that sort of goes really well abroad as well because a lot of the stuff that we put out, it definitely does carry that very Australian sort of sense of camaraderie and sort of our unique style of pathos in our drama and our unique style of comedy carries really well abroad. Believe it or not.
Yeah, can you elaborate on particularly that? Because I know international communities do appreciate the Australian ethos, and particularly when things are uniquely Australian. Is there any places that like the Australianness more than others?
Yeah, well, I actually spoke to the director of Berlin Webfest, Meredith Berkhold, last year sometime when I was in Italy for a different web festival, and she said that she really likes a lot of the stuff that comes out of our country, and specifically pointed to a series called Fight and ISIS. Now, Fight and ISIS is a animation series done by a comedy group called Stepmates, and they eventually led on to something that's currently on Channel 7 now called Regular Old Bogan.
Ah.
So their original series featured the exact same characters, but basically their plan was it was just 4 bogans that wanted to go over to Israel and Syria and fight ISIS. And that
understandable.
was, yeah, and the whole thing was just one big piss take from beginning to end of you've got this bogan mindset of we can go over there and fight these fuckers.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nah. And she said that that style of comedy, admittedly, she didn't know all of the exact lingo and the exact sort of references, but she said that she found it really funny, just the way it was presented and how we sort of communicated our culture in a sense through this one little animated series.
Oh, does that translate to longer forms as well, Damo? Does Australianness do well across the board elsewhere, or do you find that when you get to cinema stuff, you probably want to target other markets according to the demographics watching it?
Well, film in general is a demographic market, so you don't really worry about the country it designates from. You just worry about a target audience, and most times, not a target audience can be Australian, American, Japanese, Korean, Italian, French. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think you really go into it worrying too much about that. I think that when you go into a project, whether it's web series, short film, feature film, TV series, you got to kind of start off about the project and who's it's going to appeal to. You know what I mean? And find that group who it's going to appeal to. That's why when you look at genre content, they've got an audience worldwide. Everybody loves action. Everyone loves thriller. Everyone loves comedy, right? Now, when you go into comedy and just standard drama, that's when it becomes a cultural thing. Aussie humour is going to be very different than US humour. You know what I mean? The Brits are very different to the Yanks, you know what I mean? Yep. And how they kind of portray that. So sometimes things don't translate when, the UK puts something out and the Yanks don't get it. We probably get British humour. Australians get British humour pretty well.
Yep.
The Yanks don't really get it, right? So they try to remake it for their own thing. So there is differences there, I think. You know what I mean? When it comes to documentary, again, it's about the story, So non-fiction is a little different as well. So I think there
becomes usually a bit more universal by that
and like
point.
you kind of mentioned anyway, they're like, well, we like how it's presented. We don't always get it, but we like how it's presented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that does go the same in long form content, but you don't really go into it saying, oh, well, I'm going to make sure I'm getting a worldwide appeal here.
Yeah, I feel just as long as the content itself is like good, usually it can transcend a lot of those cultural barriers.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even going back like to feature films like Animal Kingdom, that did really well abroad.
Oh yeah,
it didn't matter the fact that like, you know, this is very like an Australian like crime drama
Yeah,
type
yeah.
thing, which does have its own distinct feel and like flair to it as compared to stuff from like the UK or America or whatever.
Yeah.
They just really liked the fact that the story it told was like really like gritty, down to earth, and it felt realistic.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, but you look at certain genres like crime drama does resonate everywhere. Like I watched, I watched crime dramas again from Japan, and it's like, oh, this is dope, and I don't, you know,
crime dramas from Japan. How does that work?
What do you mean? How does that work?
Compared to Australian crime dramas, I haven't actually seen many Japanese crime dramas.
Well, everything's different. If you're doing a crime drama in Italy, New York City, Los Angeles, Japan, you know what I mean? They're all like it's all different. It's based on that culture there. But like he's saying, it's very realistic and gritty depending on that culture. Yeah, you know what I mean? When you look at Animal Kingdom, it was very Australian centric, obviously.
True.
Yeah, it's kind of like
So they're still gritty across the board.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto Vice City versus Grand Theft Auto San Andreas versus Yakuza 3.
Now you're making them sound fun.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's based on that where it's from is going to have a big, you know, like you look at something like The Town, it's set in Boston. That's going to be something different than setting something in LA. Like you look at America, you can do something that's set in Texas, it's going to feel like a Western.
True.
Do something set in Boston and New York, it's going to, you know what I mean? It's going to feel very, you know, Irish, Italian. Do something on the West Coast, it's going to feel very surfer, you know what I mean? Point Break.
So while we're on the topic of genre and stuff, are there any particular genres you found don't translate as well over to web series?
I find that like maybe it's not like just in terms of like the actual genre itself, but I feel that sci-fi, if you don't have a big enough budget for it, it can just feel really schlocky. Like I have seen really, really good like sci-fi web series done before, but usually they're a lot higher budget and they've got to put a lot more time and effort in production design.
So much VFX.
Yeah, and a lot of it in VFX, because if something doesn't like immerse you in the experience, if it's something that takes you out, then it just doesn't feel right. So that's the one genre that like is really, really hard to pull off. And I'm seeing like a fair few series fail. I've seen a lot of them do really well though.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So you've got plenty of opportunities here. If someone wanted to get an opportunity in web series, where do you usually start? Does it happen, you know, in your TAFE or your university, or do you usually have to go hunt it down?
Well, as I said earlier, a lot of universities these days are sort of focusing a lot on online content and they're sort of involving that in the curriculum. So that's actually a really good way of getting into it. In terms of like actually immersing yourself in it and getting onto bigger and better productions, generally the best idea is to just sort of find like the people that are doing it in your community. And a lot of that you can find at the festivals and that, because a lot of those people actually show up and they want to congregate, they want to sort of, you know, talk about the new thing they're working on. They want to find out what you're working on and any way that they can help out.
So you'd basically just go to a festival and go, hi, I want to do your next one. Or is there like a particularly well-known forum where you can jump on it?
There's a lot of different Facebook groups and that sort of...
Facebook's everything these days, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know that there's a couple of them that are on Facebook at the minute that are basically just, you know, find a filmmaker type stuff where it's more focused on web content. And you can usually find something through that. Obviously not at the moment because everyone has to social distance still.
Oh, yeah.
Hope you're 1.5 meters away.
Yeah, I'm at least, 1.5.
Fantastic. So yeah, it just comes down to like, if you want to just start, you can. Like if you've got like an iPhone and a couple of mates and like some cheap editing software, just start with that. If you want to do something bigger and better, generally a lot of filmmakers, you know, are pretty happy to help pitch in the idea because they want something new on their portfolio. And
how many of your submissions do you find are actually iPhones that end up being good?
We've seen...
I know iPhone can be good, but...
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, it's one of those things that depending on the genre, it can really sort of like be night and day. Documentary, for example, you can shoot that on an iPhone and no one's really going to tell the difference. Obviously, if you've got some like really high quality cameras and that, you can do a lot more of the fancier stuff. But for the most part, as long as the story you're trying to tell is good, by all means. I've seen a lot of comedy series that have been shot on iPhones and that be submitted and we couldn't tell the difference. Drama and is probably the hardest genre to do, just because like cinematography and that is very sort of ingrained with the actual story.
And usually locked on like one or two lenses, and one is usually just a zoom function.
Yeah, exactly. So depending on what genre you want to do, you may want to spend a bit of money on the equipment. The one thing I can just put right out there right now, and you're going to back me up on this, is make sure your sound quality is not shit.
100%.
I've actually lost track of the number of series that I've taken one look at, and the sound quality is actually like really, really bad. And it just took me that far out of the experience that I didn't want to watch it anymore.
You're a festival that's going to put it up on a
One
giant
thing I got to
screen.
say, and just kind of jump onto that, and this is just across the board, like what people don't understand is, and most people say, oh, it shouldn't matter if the story's good, or it shouldn't matter if this is good. Nah, at the end of the day, man, if you've got any technical fuck ups, if something's underlit, if something's the sound quality's off, or the framing just looks like it's been done by Stevie Wonder, like it's just going to fucking, it does take your eye away. You're like a festival judge, right?
Yeah.
I say the same thing when we're doing castings and we're watching self-tapes that are technically shocking. The sound quality sounds like this, and you know what I mean, they framed it like a fuckhead. And you go, you can't help not look at the technical. It's going to go against you no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Like if something's like really underlit, or it sounds like they filmed it with their mum's panties in their mouth or something, it's just like, can't take those out and do it again. Like do it properly. But like I've always been a big proponent of like, there's three aspects of like film. So there's like your story is 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
Your cinematography is the other third, and your audio is the other third. If any one of those three things isn't at 100%, then you're doing something wrong. You need to go back.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but there's only one video stream, but there's a left and right audio channel.
Get the fuck out.
All right, it's fine. You got audio is like two sets of like 12.5%.
That's what I said. Like, this is one of the things, and I kind of do go on rants about this shit. And it's like, this is why you need to constantly practice and keep putting content out there. And because we're in such a realm that you're right, you can shoot something on your iPhone. You can buy DSLR and film that shit. Like, it's so accessible now to keep filming stuff because there are so many elements of filmmaking and storytelling that you have to use. And so you're right, you break it into those three components, which is good, but even in those three components, they can even go further. Like, you look at story, but then inside story still goes to the acting, the writing, like, everything that you're going to use, and that the set dressings and how you're going to use certain color schemes and things like that all go into that kind of realm as well. And these are things that you're only going to accomplish the more you practice it and the more you put it into play. So when people just think, oh, well, it's fine, I've got this story, but like, you've got to kind of go into a lot of detail. You don't get there unless you keep producing content. Yeah,
and actually, I will say that that's one of the advantages of doing like web series content is that like, say if you've got like 6 episodes planned and like 2 of them turn out to be shit. So maybe the first 2 episodes that you actually shot, something was underlit, or you used the wrong type of microphone, or you forgot to turn phantom power on because you're a dumb cunt. I don't know. But you just scrap those and you got 4 that are still usable. Whereas if you do like a single short film, like everything across the board has to be consistent, because if like you took a week off and you come back and like suddenly like the scene is lit differently, or the audio quality is like taking a dip, or your cinematographer's like been on the bender for the last week, like it feels less cohesive. And I'm not knocking like short film. I'm just saying that that's like one of the bigger challenges, that if you do short film as you got to get that whole thing across the board.
I think it depends on what you're doing as well. Like I agree there to an extent too. I mean, when you're doing web series, you do have that time. If you're doing a 6x10, like you're saying, you know what I mean, then you're pretty much creating 60 minutes of content that you're shooting over a span of weeks, and then you should be able to kind of, and hopefully you will come back at everything you're doing, and you're kind of able to review that kind of thing. I think as a writer and a storyteller, you know what I mean, that's where short films are probably a little better for you as a writer and a director and a storyteller, because you are tackling different stories and different genres. So I think it all depends on what you're trying to achieve out of it. But the other thing as well is, I think web series can easily translate to TV series a lot easier than short films translate to feature films. So when you're looking to go from that short form content to long form content, so it also depends on what you want to do. Because one thing I can't stress to people is series and films, 2 different art forms.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? I think that once you can identify that, you got to figure out which one you want to go into. And if you say you want to go into series, then that's when you kind of knuckle in and go, okay, well, let's start with web series and web content and do your 6x10s, or start with a 4x6 or something like that. It depends again what it is, but you can start to build yourself from there.
Okay, so here's the big one. Has anyone ever managed to do an impressive series shot on phone vertical?
So there was that one that I mentioned earlier called Artistically Challenged. It was done completely through Instagram, just because the way the platform works, you have to shoot it vertical.
Did they pull it off?
They pulled it off. Like, obviously you kind of like have to adjust to it first, because like, your eyes are like this, they're not like this. And you once you immerse yourself in it though,
at the same time, it's still a medium. I just haven't seen anyone pull off the medium yet.
Yeah, if I saw that in like just an everyday thing where it just went from like, you know, landscape, portrait, I would fucking lose my
You're
mind.
watching Today Tonight again, you know, and here comes the dodgy man with live footage we got.
He's making all these kids fat and stealing your pension.
Damn right.
Cool. I got a question for you. So, how do you feel about web series that, say, have inconsistent lengths in their episodes? So episode 1's 4 minutes, episode 2 is like 9 minutes, 13 minutes, 7 minutes, 12 minutes, etc.
Oh, good question. So I have actually found that like to be one of the I won't say an issue, but one of the challenges that I've found with web series is that often you'll find that the pilot episode will either be significantly longer or significantly shorter than the rest of the series. And that can be for two reasons. A lot of the time they shoot the pilot just as a proof of concept and it works really well. So then they do the rest of the series. Yeah. Other times they really want to front load all the story. And then the rest of the series is sort of elaborating on that. Yeah. And both of them have different sort of advantages and disadvantages. Yeah. There's one series called Reclamation, I believe it was called, that basically the first episode of that was about 30 minutes. And then every episode after that was about like 15 to 20.
Gotcha, yeah.
However, it front loaded a lot of the story that you needed to know to really enjoy the rest of the series. And then the rest of it was just like sort of more set piece focus where it's just like expanding upon that information. It took a little bit of like sort of willpower to get through the first episode though, just because like it was like for web content stuff, that's ridiculously long. As I said earlier, like you need to really sort of capture the audience. Yeah. But once you do, it was like pretty rewarding. I could just imagine that like their audience numbers probably would have like dropped off after the first episode just because of how long it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, you know, it is one of the big disadvantages with doing it that way. But you know, the other option is you do it really short, first episode, and if people really like that, you can put it on like all the other platforms, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Vine if it was still a thing. And then every other episode is longer. But that might also annoy people because they're like, well, we like the short content because it's like easily digestible. We can have like, you know, a coffee and watch this in the morning. We don't want to have to sit there and watch 20 minutes worth of content.
Yeah, yeah. But ideally, would you say consistency is best? Try keep episodes roughly around the similar to TV. Keep your episodes roughly around that same length.
Yeah, generally, like as I said, like 6x10 and like 10x6 are like the two most popular formats because like you can generally get like an hour worth of content and you split it up the way you want. And just as long as you keep it between like, you know, 9 and 12 minutes, people aren't really going to bat an eye. If for whatever reason, like your series finale is like 55 minutes, people are going to be like, oh, fucking stop the train right there.
Yeah.
Nice. So actually shooting web series, and this is something both of you have experience on. You've worked on a series that's had funding before. Is there anything particularly different in the way that shooting it's laid out, particularly at the higher end?
Generally, in terms of like the shooting, a lot of the time, because like you're shooting multiple episodes, you need to sort of like take into account of like, well, at this point in the series, like XYZ's happened, so we need to sort of set dress to do that. We need to like make sure the characters are in the right mindset. Unlike with a film where like everything sort of like flows in together because like web series content, like, you know, it's, you know, 6, episodic, 10, 12 like episodes, you got to like sort of think in that mindset, which...
Do you almost plan in the same way of a feature where you got to plan for the long form continuity?
I think you plan it as a feature, but the things internally change. So for art department and costume and makeup, it's a different kettle of fish because they're now going, you know what I mean? Like having to go, okay, well, that's 6, then we're shooting 5. But if you get given, say, like, because I first did a couple of web series, when you get given, okay, we're doing these 7 episodes that are, you know, 10 minutes a piece or whatever it is, and it's like, here's all the scripts, here's how we're doing it. Well, obviously, we're going to shoot all the stuff at this location. Then we're going to see as a film, you know what I mean? Yeah. This house here, even though this house is in every episode, we're going to make sure we're shooting all the house stuff in these 2 days. Then you got to do this. So it makes it trickier for your script supervisor, your continuity person, your makeup, hair, costume, or not hair, but costume and all those kind of art department as well. Depends on if there's a passage of time as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got a black eye after episode 3. You know what I mean? So you got to make sure that looks consistent too.
Yeah, I guess just as long as you got the same crew like working like episode to episode, it makes it significantly easier.
Oh yeah, same as a film. Yeah, if you have a 6-week crew slate, and it's consistency. Yeah, absolutely. But if you spread out, because some people might do a web series where they do episode 1. and then 6 weeks later they get episode 2
Almost
up,
like a pitch for doing anything further.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do it that way. Like I've seen what I've seen anyway from a distance in Melbourne. I haven't worked on any in Melbourne, but from a distance, you kind of see someone says, "Oh, we're going to string together these 2 episodes, and then in a few months' time, we'll get our money, recoup some cash. We'll then shoot another 2 or 3 episodes." And most time, what happens, you get rolling crew there because crew don't commit to that. And
I've actually seen that happen before, where like they'll shoot a pilot and then they'll get like a little bit of funding, so they'll do episode 2 and 3, and then after like they've got the first 3 done, that gives them like access to more money, so they'll do the next ones. And I have seen that work where like they get a rolling crew, but then there may be like I remember hearing a story about 2 years ago where for a month's period there, like a guy was working on the Mortal Kombat feature that was being shot in South Australia. So they basically lost their cinematographer and I think their sound guy for the entire shoot of their like episode 5 and 6.
Must have had a good cinematographer and sound guy if they ended up on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. So, well, what do you do then? How do you replace those 2 like integral people?
Yes. Hi, brand new person. We need you to match the style of this dude.
Yeah, we know you.
And every cinematographer, usually has a different style. I mean, everyone knows the basic fundamentals, and as you know, Damo, once you've got a cinematographer you work well with, you build up half your quality through the relationship of them being able to translate your vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Like. Yeah, it's tough as well. But I think if you get to a point where, okay, well, we've done 4 episodes.
Do you almost say at that point, okay, we'll make sure that, this person finishes doing this bunch of episodes and the next one gets done, like you sometimes have different directors for TV episodes?
Well, ideally, you wouldn't want another director coming in halfway through episode 3. Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd want to go, okay. Well, the problem is as well, if you're doing a schedule where you're pretty much shooting all 6 episodes shuffled up, then that's pretty tricky. But that's why, like, that's why you want.
Would you almost plan ahead, knowing?
You plan ahead as much as you can, but I mean, in my point of view, as a director, like, you'd want to have as much consistency as possible. Now, if you're in a position where it's like, well, I can only commit to 2 weeks of shoot, and that's a 6-week shoot. Then you bring in another director who can only do 2 weeks of shoot. Then you bring in another one who can do the last 2 weeks. So it's okay, we've got 3 directors who are actually going to be directing all 6 episodes, just portions of each 6 episodes. Then it's on the directors to sit down together with the writer and whoever and get on the same page. You know what I mean? If you're rolling it that way, then it does get tricky and it might feel a little disjointed. I mean, you see this in Hollywood all the time. Look how fucking train wreck Justice League was.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was half Zack Snyder, half Joss Whedon. 2, capable directors, but it still looks like shit when you put 2 different directors.
And it turns into a mess.
Turns into an absolute mess.
I feel like that if you can find people that like work well together though, like for the most part, that may not be the exact same like as 2 cinematographers will have like a different interpretation of stuff. But if your director and like your actors are sort of like on the same board, that they can accurately communicate what they're going after, they can't perfectly emulate it, but they can sort of get close and they can add their own little stylistic flair, which helps.
Yeah, I think the specialty. I think with film, the director is integral, 100%. You notice with series, the actors are more integral than the director. That's why you see in series is rolling directors all the time. You know what I mean? Like different directors doing each episode or something, because the actors take on the role and the crew are they're probably the same crew most of the time. They're probably in a well-oiled machine. The director just comes in, puts his little fucking, condiments on it, whatever, and moves on. I think with a film, it's more of a director's vision. So I think with series, you find it's more the writer's vision. It's more what the writer's trying to accomplish and the producers are kind of on board because they're the ones who are consistently there the whole time. Like you look at the more, and again, I'm going more to TV probably than web series, but you look at the famous TV series, it's usually got a showrunner. Yes. And they're kind of making the calls, making the decisions, and you have guest directors come in, bang, we do this. Whereas in film, it's the director's vision and the director's kind of running the shot. And that's why I keep saying it's 2 different art forms. Yeah, series and film are so different. So it's not easier, I mean, it's still inconvenient, but if you've got a different cinematographer and a different director for the last couple of episodes, you should be able to...
You can at least work with it.
As long as the cast are consistent and the actors are in motion of what they're doing, you should be able to sticky tape it enough together to still make it look like the same product.
Yeah,
that it was.
I feel like that's like the very big like differentiation between like if you want to work on like film versus if you want to work on series is that getting to like work with a different like director or a different cinematographer like if the need arises, because like with film like they book in for that entire thing, but as you said with series like there's rolling like cast like there may be like you direct episode 1 and 10 or you may direct episode 2 and 7, so you got to get used to like working with these different people, their different styles and their different sort of like codes and conventions of how they run their set, which for some people would be very, very difficult, because like that's the one thing that film sort of has going for it, is that like if you really get along with the director and you really get along with like these crew members, it makes the whole thing so much easier. But if you're constantly
100%.
if you're constantly rolling through them, like it's basically a new adventure every day, and sometimes it can turn out bad.
Yeah, it happens on lower budget feature films too, when you got different crew coming. Usually your HODs are all the same, but when you got rolling crew, and then you all of a sudden, well, this person, like the camera assistant, hasn't worked well with the DP, so now the camera assistant's fucking up, the DP's getting shitty.
Yeah. Or the DP doesn't like the sound guy.
Yeah, happens a lot, especially on our sets.
Yeah, I keep saying replace the DP, but he doesn't listen.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
No, send him to the Soviet Union.
Straight to Gulag. Okay, so really cool to do this as a creative thing, but the big question I'm sure everyone wants to know is, how do you turn web series into an eventual revenue stream? You know, because eventually you got to get paid if you're going to keep doing your passion.
Yeah, definitely. For a lot of people, it's actually just like they use it mainly as a portfolio piece, because it's a really easy and efficient way to get a lot of content out there really quick to showcase what you can do. But for a lot of people, their sort of main goal is to get it on TV. As I mentioned earlier, there's Stepmates that turned one of their series into a thing on Channel 7. There's also Kate McKinnon and Kate McCarthy that did a series called The Catering Show, spelled with a K. That eventually turned into Get Crackin' on ABC. Then there's also a lot of people that they do like a series and then they'll get picked up by, say ABC iView or SBS On Demand or someone like that, and just get brought in to do a series that they had already planned, but they want someone to put their different spin on it. So there's different ways of sort of getting a revenue stream. It's completely different to traditional film, where like your main revenue stream is your distribution model. Yeah. Because the distribution model is you basically put it on a platform and you hope for the best. Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much similar to shorts. I think web series and shorts are in the similar kind of realm. I mean, they're good portfolio pieces, like I've mentioned before. Similar thing, like obviously with shorts now, you can obviously place that on online platforms. Obviously, with the way YouTube's working right now as well, you can still create revenue from that. Obviously, Amazon Prime and things like that take series and shorts and things like that, probably more than any other kind of streaming service. Well, like non-streaming service, I should say. But yeah, I think that's pretty similar. Like it's every now and then you'll get. I think obviously a web series has more of a chance, I think, of being picked up, by an ABC or something like that, than a short film does of getting picked up from a festival and turned into a feature. Still happens for both. Obviously, but also depends on the series. But then sometimes web series do, in my opinion, can fail to translate to the longer form. You know what I mean? Like I've saw it in WA. There was a web series in WA, a kind of a good one. It was like very viral and everything like that. They got their shot at ABC, but it couldn't translate from being 4-minute skits to 25-minute, episodes. It just doesn't work in the longer form. So it also does depend on the content itself. That's why I think comedies can kind of work, but can you obviously, when you do sitcom style, that's its own art form, Yes. And can a 4-minute comedic web series translate to 25-minute episodes?
Would you treat that as fleshing out like one episode to a full 25 minutes, or would you go at that point, okay, I need to fit,
I think what you do with
6 to 8 episodes.
Again, I've never made a web series, so I don't really want to play expert here, but I know storytelling. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, I think with the web series, and this is what we we're talking about before with episode lengths and being consistent, I think you want to treat it with the same principle and go, okay, well, I've got, we're going to create 60 minutes of content over, 10 6-minute episodes or 6 10-minute episodes. So you want to kind of create for that. And then what you kind of do from there is, if you do want to turn that into a sitcom, don't scrap it, but you almost start from scratch a little bit. Okay, we've got our characters. What worked in the web series? What did people find funny? What was our good feedback? You know what I mean? Which characters worked and which didn't? You know what I mean? And then kind of build it from there into a series.
Yeah, it kind of introduces its own new challenges as well. Because so say if you're used to making 6-minute skits or whatever, and then you suddenly get given a blank check and told, hey, we need 23 minutes worth of content. You need to do 10 episodes. Yeah. Suddenly, you have to fill a lot more content in in the same period of time, but you have to do more of it. So I have a feeling that one of the big challenges that a lot of people go from making short form content to making TV series content is that they're snappy, succinct, and quick writing. They have to flesh that out over the same period of time, but they have to keep just building on it.
Well, I was watching a web series last night, because obviously we're in the casting process now, and when you start going through the rabbit hole of portfolios and people start putting out what they've done and things they've been in. So we got recommended an actor, so I was like, all right, let's see what they've done, and there's a web series. So I started putting that on. They were 18-minute episodes, right? And they were comedy based, but there was no pacing to it. I was like, I'm watching 18 minutes, which felt like 36 minutes and it's comedy. It's supposed to be choppy. And I think that comes in the editing as well. Like when you're doing comedy, you want quicker cuts, you know what I mean? Which helps pace up a scene. Just long holding shots. Like it was almost shot like drama. Ooh. But they're trying to do comedy, you know what I mean? So there's certain things like that. But you look at that, that's already 18 minutes. And they're already, that's still in the web form, you know what I mean? It's kind of, and you're already struggling to fill that content because I'm feeling there's a lot of just filler in there.
Yeah, so once again, I feel like in certain like circumstances, the less is more. Like if you only have to fill up like 6 minutes worth of content, you pick your 10 best jokes and you just run with those. Whereas if you have to fill like an entire 18 minutes out,
and you've still got creators that though.
Yeah, and you've still got those 10 jokes. Like you either flesh them out or you start putting like bullshit in between. Like, And I guess that comes like mostly down to like the script writer and the actors and like how well that they can both write the content and present it.
I think as well with comedy, that's why like you look at most big comedies all ensemble based. I mean, you want multiple characters to go through, so one character can just take a break for an episode, still in and out, but you're not focused on the same person over and over again. Usually they build it over multiple characters, and that could be one of the things that you could bring in when you're going from short form to long form.
In short form, you don't have as much time to develop a character.
But usually that's what you find.
Kind of expected.
In short form, you're just really focusing on the one.
Yeah,
and that's how you make. And I've got friends who have made web series, and I kind of look at what they're doing. And as somebody who, again, I don't make web series, so I don't comment on the structure of web series, but in terms of how to tell a story and what to do with it, I was really feeling, well, you're kind of trying to spread out. You're trying to do like a Seinfeld where you're focusing on 4 characters, but you're trying to do 8-minute episodes. So that's not going to work, you know what I mean? So maybe try and build one first, and then, you know what I mean, then have your side characters and see which ones are resonating with audiences.
Use the perspective of that one character you develop to bring others in the next few episodes.
Yeah, and then see what's working for the audience. Because that's the beauty about web series is you can actually see live what's happening, what's the responses to being, what's the feedback coming through. You know what I mean? I love that character. You know what I mean? I love what you're doing there. Then great. Okay, now it comes time to actually potentially build this into a TV platform or Netflix or Stan or whoever wants to pick this thing up. Then you start going, okay, well, this is what was working. So let's kind of like flesh that out a bit without killing it, without flogging a dead horse either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I can imagine that like there will be some people out there that like they put together a whole series, whether it be like a full TV series or just web series or whatever. And the first episode comes out and people are like, I really like character X, but character Y can fuck right off. And they're like, oh shit, episode 3 is completely character Y. Are we going to lose our entire audience just because like we didn't like, get a test audience in to like get all this sort of done properly first? Because, that happens a lot in TV where they just sort of put something together as a spin-off show or because like there's a big director attached to it. And
eventually Sheldon was annoying enough in Big Bang Theory, and then suddenly young Sheldon came out.
Yeah, exactly. And then something comes out and it's just like people don't gravitate towards it for the same reasons because, they just find the content.
Well, spin-offs struggle anyway because people, they just compare it to what it came from. Unless it's a completely separate spin-off. The only way it kind of works is if it's a minor character.
Or if it's Frasier.
Yeah. Well, Frasier,
actually, Frasier was a spin-off that worked. I can't remember many others.
Yeah. No, not really.
Friends had the Matt LeBlanc one.
Oh, yeah, don't.
That was a piece of shit.
That's the famous shit one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Big Bang Theory was already terrible, and then, it decided to make
Pete, really, you enjoyed the first 2 seasons. I think that's what you mentioned.
Not in the slightest.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Breaking Bad's got Better Call Saul, which it basically followed the same sort of arc of like people like the first couple of seasons, but then like the later seasons like are really, really gripping and like probably the best TV out at the minute.
So he spends enough time. I mean, if you're using 2 seasons, Vince Gilligan had better have developed a good character by then.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So you were mentioning before that when people get their opportunities, it's usually developing on an earlier idea. How often is it that any organization like SBS, ABC or something will go, hi, we'd like you to develop your idea? And how many other times is it just, yo, we like what you do, here's our idea, develop it or come up with a new one? Do you find there's a threshold there?
Well, it's one of those things that, like, depending on who the person is and, like, sort of how well that they do their web series, like, it could eventually lead to them, like, selling it off to, like, a platform. Other times it could just lead to them just continuing and doing their own thing. So, for example, there's a bloke named Tom Chamberlain that's been doing, like, web series ever since, like, 2012, I believe it was. He had a series called The Pantsless Detective, and it's got a cult following to it. It never really reached a lot of mainstream appeal. I love the guy to death, but there's like a few parts of the series that like I don't gel with. And it's one of those things that like he just does it because he really enjoys it. So for a lot of people, web series is like a really easy avenue to get into because like
It's basically like the early, Flash things. David Firth's Salad Fingers was amazing. Burnt Face Man, amazing. And then he got a few extra things out of that, but you don't really hear much of them these days.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a creative release because there's also a lot of people that they'll work in like a different type of video medium. Like they may work in corporate videos and they may work in broadcast or whatever, and they just want to do something creative and they want to do something fun because to them, like as a hobby, they don't really want to get anything out of it. They just want to do something, maybe get like a portfolio piece together, use that to get to something better. But if it doesn't happen, at least they enjoyed the experience and the friends they made along the way is the revenue they want.
Do you find that translates as well in film and stuff where someone does an earlier film and then they go, hi, we want you to do a completely different thing. We've seen that you're accomplished, but it doesn't translate because it's not their passion?
I'm trying to understand the question. Terms of... Does somebody, but the way we talking
so
shorts,
someone
we're
makes
talking
a really good short or something,
Okay, so we're talking
company gives, short or any kind of that form of content, and then they say, I want you to make a feature, and it just doesn't work because it's not their thing. Is there any way?
So the person who's made the short,
yes,
right? Someone approaches them and says, I love your short, I want you to make it into a feature, but they're not passionate about it, despite the fact they made the short. Is that your question?
I think it's more saying like, so say if you made a short and like a producer came along and was like, yo, we really like your short. We've got this idea. It's completely different to anything that you've worked on.
Oh, so they're coming to you with an idea.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Can you just ask all the questions?
Yes. Sure. I don't know. Sorry. I'm usually a little bit more switched on than this. But that happened a lot in my early career. I used to get approached to do heaps of shorts. Like people came to me with scripts all the time. This was in the midst of like, I think my third or fourth short I'd done at that point. And a lot of like writers would come to me or producers would come to me and say, oh, we've got this script, have a read of it. It's not my thing. But again, I'm a career driven person. Now, I think in a way, I've known a lot of people who've made short films because they just want to have fun and they just want to say, you know what? And it's similar to what you were saying. It's like, I do my day to day. Like I remember I produced a short film for a friend of a bloke who was like an accountant. And, when he was like 16, he wanted to be a filmmaker and now he's 35. Back then he was like 35 or 30, 36 or something like that. And he goes, I just want to make a short film for fun. So like, yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's run it. Let's see what we can do out of it. So you do have people like that also. And then for those ones, it's like, dude, do what you want. You got to create it. That's the beauty of it. You can go out and make whatever the hell that you want to make. I think that the mindset of the individual is what changes how you should do it. If you're making a web series or a short film just to have a crack at it, have some fun, hey, if something came up of it, sweet, but I'm not stressed about that because I've already got my day-to-day that I do over here, then world's your oyster. There's no shackles. But I think if you're trying to chase a career, you need to be using these, like you're saying, as a portfolio piece, as a stepping stone to go, okay, well, I'm going to make it in a certain way that I'm training myself and I'm building myself up. So if I'm making 16 shorts, I've got to make sure each short I'm progressing where I'm at. Or if I'm making, this is my fourth web series now, but I want to get into TV eventually, I've got to make sure that I'm trying to make this web series stand out in a certain way. So it all depends on the individual and their mentality and what they see their future as.
You also got to be very selective with what projects you attach yourself to. Because if you do 3 really gritty dramas and then your fourth one is lesbian sea serpents from outer space or something, that might...
You're only as good as your last gig, yeah.
Yeah, that might tank your career because people will say, look at that and it's like, well, maybe he's past his prime or maybe he's really good with this particular thing, but he's not versatile. And that can really destroy your entire career.
I think that's the beauty about short form content in a way is you can bury that shit. I think because you can go, fuck, we're filming this is trash. Like I've done with a few of my shorts that I've made. I'm like, this is trash. I'm burying this shit. I think that's why you got to be. But again, you're right. But especially as a creator, you can and a director or writer, or whatever, you can always bury your own shit. But if you attach yourself as somebody who it's somebody else's content and you put your name on there as a creator, like if I directed it for a producer and then all of a sudden they put it out there, and the next minute I'm like, oh fuck, I'm about to go for funding for a feature film, and that's what they're watching. Then it's fucked up.
Yeah. So once again, as I said, you got to be selective with your projects if you want to make a career out of it, and that goes for pretty much every creative piece. Because as Pete said, you're only as good as your last gig. So if you work for a producer but you're not passionate about the project, or there's red flags popping up left, right, and center, just fucking run.
Yeah, 100.
All right, so what qualities do you see coming out of web series creators, particularly when they're looking to develop their careers, that they might have an advantage over other formats or mediums? Because you mentioned before they're very good at short-term punchy stuff. Is there any particular places, maybe commercials or something, where they can slip in more effectively than people who are focused on long form?
Well, I do know like a bunch of like creators that they started off doing web series and then they actually transitioned into doing commercials and corporate videos because like that really quick, punchy, like get to the message and make it stand out works really well for you've got 30 seconds to sell like a Kia Cerato, you know. And a lot of them actually really excel at that because like you can give them an idea and they know exactly how to do that in the quickest way possible, but make it eye-catching, appealing, you know, get the kiddies involved, add fucking TikTok, Fortnite flossing, all that good shit to it.
You notice a lot of TikTok ads are starting to appear corporations. I mean, every now and then, you know, I finally get a Tinder match with an advert. So they're at least being rather prevalent there as well.
Yeah, there you go. I think like Tinder's just like starting to really drill in. It's just like we can advertise this guy through sex. So let's do it.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's working, but I've got a really cute date with a Kia Cerato later on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also sort of stands for like people that do like a lot of short film content. Like I've heard of a few people that worked at like on stuff for Tropfest that eventually went on and they ended up doing like really well in like commercial spaces because like they had like a really good eye and a really good vision in that. And if you gave them the idea, they can just like run with it and they can make something.
Tropfest was always an interesting one for me because it was like, not all the time, but every now and then it's like the guy who wins is some 17-year-old kid who shot something on his phone in portrait. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these festivals at the time, maybe not back in the day. I think Tropfest in the 90s and shit was a little bit more legit. I felt that it went through a kind of phase. And again, like, I don't have the facts, so I'm not going to speak facts. Just how I interpreted it. It came a little bit of a gimmick. It's kind of like we want someone out there to win it, like somebody who's not really trained in film to kind of win it. But that being said, I mean, over the years, I watched a lot of great Tropfest films. I was like, and I could absolutely no doubt they would have turned into, you know, good commercial directors and things like that because they're telling some awesome stories in like 3 minutes. Yeah, it's fucking funny, it's punchy, it's good. You know what I mean? And it works as well. So, but yeah, I think if the more you tackle short form content, I think that's where you're going to end up. That's the thing. And I know heaps of them that have made a few shorts, then went into corporate directing, commercial directing. You know what I mean? Things like that. I tackled that for a minute, you know, back in the day as well. Yeah,
you almost typecast yourself is that like you're the guy that can really like get the message across in like 3 minutes or less, and that's sort of where you stick. Once they give you like too much of a leash to work with, though, you might be able to strangle yourself with it, which is what a lot of people, you know, going back to what we're saying, where it's like the second they're given like too much of a playing field, that's where they start to flounder. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's like anything. Like if you get given 24 hours to do something, you're going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone says, I want this in 7 weeks. You'll just procrastinate.
Yeah, fuck it. You MacGyver something together.
You still do a 24-hour thing, but you do it in
you wait for the last 24 hours to do it.
5 days.
Same thing with anything. Like if we get given, okay, you got 30 seconds to do a commercial. Okay, great. But we want to do this 7-minute instruction video. You're like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I almost find that the 30-second commercials easier.
Yeah, because you almost have to like put your best ideas forward. Whereas like if you're doing, you know, 7 minutes, you have to like sort of
you have to make it cool within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know? And getting people engaged. Okay, so stepping back a bit from people who've, you know, got their portfolio up and running. How about, you know, you've just graduated and you're figuring out, do you want to go into doing shorts or web series? Is there an easy way to figure out which one you might gravitate towards?
I guess it comes down to the individual. I guess like, you know, you could probably compare like the two of us and like the things that we've been saying and the pros and cons of like both of them and make your own decision. Cause like, you know, some people want to go into doing TV series. They want to have something that they can work on over like a longer period of time. Whereas some people want to have like a big project to work on like every year, like running forward. So I guess that's sort of where you sort of make your decision on like, do I want to do something that's like one big, like massive project that's going to end up as being a feature, or do I want to do like a bunch of little projects that are going to be episodes of a TV show or a web series?
I also think that, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like you spot on, it's individual. Do you come out and say, well, do I want to work in TV? Because a lot of people now prefer series over films.
Yeah.
Where 20 years ago wasn't the case. People prefer film over series.
The cinematic quality in TV series
TV's gone up.
Insane,
TV's gone up fucking heaps. You know what I mean? In terms of production value, quality, the star power now that are running TV shows now, it's incredible. So there's probably going to be more, filmmakers coming out now wanting to actually produce series over film. So I think it comes down to what do I want to do. Now, if you're somebody who's uncertain, well, then don't even worry about the platform just yet. You come out and you get an idea and work out how's this going to translate. You know what I mean? Like I do it all the time. Like when I'm writing, I've written feature film scripts before that I'm sitting there going, fuck, this might actually be a series. Yeah. Because it's just too long. It's too big. I can't do this in 90 pages or 120 pages. I need this might have to be a 45-minute ep series, like, you know what I mean? Per ep kind of thing. So that's another way you can kind of handle it, is kind of go, well, I'm not sure which one I fall into yet. So, but what you can do is you can create your idea. And as you create your idea and it's being fleshed out, that might answer the question for you. Does this work better if I do a 6x10 web series, or do I do a 16-minute short film?
Yeah, so not just about building exposure, but exposing yourself to different mediums as well.
Well, you have to. That's what part of early in your career is all about, is you got to find where you fit. And not only where you fit, like if you're a writer, you got to figure out your genre, your style, what kind of films you like. Because again, you look at every writer, they've got a style. Every director's got a style. You know a Tarantino film from a mile away. You know a Scorsese film from a mile away. Ridley Scott, Guy Ritchie, the list goes on. So you got to kind of find your own style and find the kind of things that you want to do as well. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't graduate film school and then next minute I know exactly what I'm doing. Because film school, not a knock on film school or unis or wherever you studied, they don't have the ability to teach you where you fit.
No, they give you like, here's how you do something, but not why you would want to personally do something in a particular way.
Here's the overall thing of how it kind of should look. Here's how it should go. We can teach you 3-point lighting. We can teach you about focal distance. You know what I mean? We can teach you a little bit of this and that. But when it comes to style, then I can't teach you that.
Yeah. I guess like if you're early on in your career though, like say if you've literally just gotten out of uni or film school or something, I misspoke before. I called a series Reclamation, was actually Restoration. Sorry, I had to look that up at some point. Yeah. So Restoration, they actually did theirs in 2 different ways, and that was the one that I was mentioning earlier, where it's like they did it both as a short.
That's right, 15-minute short.
Yeah, and then they also did it as a series. So if you're your own boss and you've got the means to do it, and you've got like the creative like endeavor, you could do it both ways and see which one personally fits your style better, which one you personally prefer.
Well, that kind of goes with one of the web series I worked on that was funded years back. Was they were funded as a web series. They were funded as a web series, and the way they shot it and did it, they then scrapped the web series and released it 5 years later as a feature film. And it worked better as a film because there was no real episodic ends to anything. It would have been one of those 3-minute ep 1, 13-minute ep 2, to trying to break it into segments, or, you know what I mean, like act 1, act 2, act 3 kind of thing. Yep. And that's another thing as well. Like, again, you're spot on. It's how the idea can flesh itself out. And sometimes it can work as both, but it's going to work better as one or the other. Yeah,
and I guess that's the thing, is that like when you're starting out, you may have this like great idea, and it's like, well, how could I tell this story like better if I do it like in multiple like little chunks, or if I do it in one major big hit? And I guess that's like something that everyone will have to find their own style of how they best tell their stories.
Yeah. And everyone's different as well. Like for me, I'm always going to go to film. That's just me. Like I just do, like there's series out there that I'd love to produce one day, because there's ideas that I've been bouncing back and forth with a few other creatives every now and then. But then I just don't feel the same way as when I start putting a film together. When I put a film together, that's what excites me.
I'll put the question to you. Would there ever be a point that like if someone came to you as like a fantastic idea and said, I want to do this as a web series, would you ever jump on top of it? If the idea was right and if it fit your
If it's a solid idea, yeah. Yeah, if I'm in love with the idea, like I don't discriminate against any form, like in terms of like, I don't do web series, or I don't. If somebody came to me with a fucking sick short, even though I've said I don't really want to go back and do shorts again after, you know what I mean, from where I'm at, it's hard to then go, well, if I'm in love with the idea, I don't necessarily want to knock it back. But yeah, if somebody came to me with an idea that worked as a great web series, let's roll, let's go.
Cool. And I guess that also touches on another point that like I had in the back of my head as well, was there's almost sort of an elitism with like people that like if they move on from doing shorts to doing features, they don't want to go back to doing shorts. And if people start off doing web series and then move to doing TV, like there is kind of still that elitism in a lot in
I still have that, but it's exclusively for wedding videos. It's not that I hate them, it's that I've done them enough to hate them.
I think it's a mental thing. Like for me personally, the reason I say I don't want to go back to shorts is because it took a long time to get to the feature. And I think that's what gets me. It's like, well, no, I felt like I worked through my time. So it's not necessarily a knock. It's like, look, I used my short films as a stepping stone, as a pedestal to build my portfolio. So I'll get it in my head. And you're spot on what it is, elitism, because it's like, I just like, well, no, I'm at features now. That's what I've got to focus on because that's where I'm at in my career. But yeah, there's definitely a thing out there that you look back, because it gets tricky, because you stop looking at it like the idea, because when you pointed that out to me, it's like, would you do a web series? I mean, you sit there and go, well, no, but then it's like, well, hang on, no, but you just said it's a really good idea. Yeah. So you sit there and go, well, hang on a minute, but it's a really good idea. So why am I turning my back on the idea if it actually works as a web series?
Yeah, if something works in the particular like format that it's done, if you try and change it too much, it might lose the appeal. So I guess it comes on a case by case basis of like, you wouldn't want to do you wouldn't want to do a feature as a web series or vice versa in certain situations.
Yeah, at this point in time, I wouldn't go out of my way to say I'm going to make a short or a web series, but if something's presented to you to do it. But then again, I think web series is also a bit different because it also depends on, there's some ideas that just work really well as a web series. It's like, well, fuck, if that's a cool idea and we want to use it, like that's kind of,
I can actually think of a very, very good example. So there was a series called H Plus that came out in 2015, I believe it was. So the idea was, it was a bunch of different like little vignettes told basically after an apocalyptic event. Now, the way they did it is they released episode by episode in a very chronological order, but they also did it in ways that like different characters will be released in different like time slots. And there was a way like they basically set it up on their YouTube page so that like one playlist was one character's from beginning to end, but it was jumping around a lot in terms of chronological fashion. And then another one was like the release order. So it was like it started 2 minutes before the event and then like 15 minutes after the event. And then the next one was like 3 years after the event. But the next one was like 2 days after the event. And it sort of jumped around like that. So I guess like if you were to do something like that where you have to be really creative with the way you do your storytelling, there's definitely like modes and ways that you want to do it that definitely wouldn't translate.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So I'm glad to hear there's plenty of opportunities in this area. And as for the actual medium of web series itself, obviously, as online's become a lot more prevalent, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, where do you see web series going in the near future?
I mean, I can't see web series stopping anytime soon because like a lot more content is like consumed through online medium than it is on traditional TV or traditional film. You see like more younger people these days are gravitating towards like online mediums than they are to pretty much everything else. So I can always see it starting to go up and up. Whether or not like the funding institutes like Screen and Odds and Film Vic have really started, but whether or not like globally they sort of keep pace with that and they start producing more and more online content to keep up with that is going to stand to reason. But I can always see it like just go on an upward trend.
Well, Amazon Prime is recently, Prime Video is picking up a lot of the web series and stuff. Do you see a lot of the other streaming platforms maybe realizing there's some gold mines here?
Well, so Stan and Netflix have both sort of said that they don't want to do anything that's not like in a traditional TV format where it's like minimum 23-minute episodes and that. I know like Quibi, as much as it's, a garbage fire at the minute, like they wanted to do a lot more of that sort of stuff, but they just didn't really have that killer like series that brought a lot of people in. So it'll be interesting.
I still don't think Apple does.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see like where like all the major distribution platforms go, whether or not they actually start like not lowering their standards, but changing like their minimum specifications and allowing shorter form stuff to come in if it's good enough, or whether or not they'll try and employ those people to just like, hey, can you like maybe do something similar, but like, at 23 minutes or 42 minutes or...
Yeah, I think that's the more realistic option, I think, because I think that they're always going to stick to their more, standard distribution models of wanting, series to be a certain 23, 46 kind of style. I know, like, obviously it's a bit different now because it's streaming, so you can have 56-minute episodes instead of 45, but you know what I mean? As opposed to short form content. Because that thing as well...
Or even you can have stuff which, is completely decided by the viewer, such as, the Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode.
Yeah. Well, stuff like that is also really interesting because, like, that's something that, like, if you were to sit down in cinema, like, unless you were to do, like, season 2, episode 2 of Futurama where everyone's got, like, the little button of yes and no.
I was about to make that joke, yes. Yeah, what calculon do?
Like, you can't really do that sort of stuff, like, in a traditional film sense, but if you've got, like, people sitting at home and they've got an interactive device, they can then dictate the story. It makes your life significantly harder.
I think we've all done Telltale series games where you can actually get the multiple players.
Let's just go back to the other fucking thing for a minute. Bandersnatch, right? Let me just say, I like the idea you're trying to put out there, right? But they're fucked. It was stupid. It was dumb because they pretty much forced you to look at everything they made. So, we don't like this decision. Maybe we're going to go back in time and you have to do another way again.
He wasn't a fan of the meta.
I wasn't a fan because it didn't feel like a pick your own ending kind of felt. Because it kept going back in time. Oh, now you're going to see this way instead.
And you have actually done some Telltale games. So.
I've done Telltales, which I enjoy.
Yeah. So what do you feel Bandersnatch failed there in particular?
Too much going back. Look, it felt like we're going. The first part was great. The first half was good, and then all of a sudden you got to a certain point where you start going in this direction. Okay, now we're going to go back in time. Now you get to go this way. Now we're going to go back to this point. Get to go. So it's giving you like you're doing both pathways across the board. That's how I felt
So there's
with
not
it, and
really
it kept
anything at
going.
stake there.
It felt like, well, yeah, it didn't really feel like anything was at stake. And then it felt like it jumped the shark a little bit, which I didn't mind too much. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's cool. I made this decision. Why do I have to go back and now do the other one?
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with you very much there. And just to keep touching on sort of the video game interactive storytelling component, Life is Strange has actually done that, but in a much better way, where you can go back in time, you can change your decisions, but it pretty much turns out that no matter what you do, it's going to end up really bad for someone, and it's just a matter of living with those consequences. And I feel that's something that Bandersnatch didn't really drill in a lot. Is that
which I love that style. There's going to you can choose your path. It's going to end fuck for someone. Fuck, you know what I mean? That's good.
Deal with consequences. Yeah.
And for anyone, I'm going to spike the camera really quick. For anyone out there that didn't like the end of Life is Strange season 1, you can go fuck yourself because it was beautiful and I cried.
Let's quickly go around. Tales from the Borderlands is my best Telltale.
Yep. I'll probably say Tales from the Borderlands is my favourite Telltale, although Wolf Among Us season 1 is up there.
Looking forward
very
to season
fucking
2.
close.
Yes.
Yep.
And how about you?
I mean, Wolf Among Us was I've only done Wolf Among Us and the 2 Batmans. I actually enjoyed Batman season 2.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Batman season 2, but I'll probably say Wolf Among Us was the best.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to season 2 there. Well, it's good to see that there are plenty of options. And I reckon Webseries is probably the best place where people will be able to try that, because YouTube actually do have those things where, you can bring up in video, click things and go, what decision can he make? No one's ever done it well, but at least there's the option there if you're doing a web series.
Yeah, well, I kind of touched on this a little bit when I mentioned that H+ allows you to basically dictate your own method of the storytelling. So whether or not you go chronologically, you do in terms of the timeline, in terms of release date, in terms of characters, in terms of locations or whatever, it gives you that option of doing it that way, which is something that depending on how you want to consume that story, there is definitely avenues for it, and that's something that online series can definitely explore a bit
Apart
more.
from Netflix, do you think anyone else is going to go for the choose your adventure version?
I can actually mention, so NZ On Air, which is one of New Zealand's bigger distributors in that.
Yeah.
They actually did a series last year whose name escapes me. I apologise. I'm actually going to have to look this up.
Oh, good.
Because it was fucking really relevant.
Do you reckon there's any spot for more similar things to Bandersnatch, but less bad?
I think so too. I think it also depends on the...
How would you approach that from directing? Because once again, you're looking at a long form thing. But
Yeah. To be honest with you, I have thought about this. Would I do one? Yes, because I love the challenge of it.
Yeah.
I think that it'll take a long time to plan out. But that's something I'd probably be entertained to do. I agree with you. I'd tackle it on a web series platform first. Because I think, that's kind of the way to go. But then again, I don't know.
You can keep it episodic, and at least in
Keep
the
it
same
episodic
way,
a little
the same
bit.
way Telltale are kind of smart in that, the decisions within it, change what happens, and the overarching story remains linear. So you can at least keep your production and the amount of stuff you shoot down.
I think there's ways to do it well. It's definitely something. I think it all depends on the popularity of it. Again, it's a, are they going to bring it out very regularly? Probably not, because I think that at the end of the day, we're at the mercy of the viewer. You know what I mean? And which is why Netflix and Stan say, no, we want more traditional content as opposed to short content, because that's what the viewers want.
True.
You know what I mean? They're not going to go against what the viewers want. Now, if short films got put on Amazon and they're blowing up left, right and center, and you know what I mean, and they're starting to make money and coin from that, and then Netflix and Stan will probably change their tune. But at the end of the day, the viewers just want to sit down and just watch a movie.
True.
So as good as these things are, and I think there will be a
good point. They do kind of turn into a video game at this point.
A little bit. There will be a platform and an audience for them. Will it blow up? I don't think so, because again, you got to remember, majority of the viewers just want to sit back, escape reality for a minute and chill and watch a movie. And most of them are watching a movie whilst they're fucking playing on their phone.
True.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think that everything should have a choose your own adventure element, because then it eliminates, first off, it makes the audience a little bit too involved in it, because as you said, a lot of people, they get home from work, they've just finished filming the trots for fucking 12 hours straight, they just want to sit down and watch something.
And the other important part of the medium is it really does hammer through that you've decided the consequences, and some people may not want that.
Yeah, exactly. They want to have a story told to them. They don't want to be a part of it.
It is, as a director, like a writer-director, it is an interesting platform. It's one of those gimmicks that like I said to you, I'd do it once as a challenge. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, my job's to be a storyteller. Let me tell a story. And this is how I want the story to go down. Because the other thing as well is you've got to remember, the beauty about storytelling is seeing characters. Because when you start doing that platform, it's very much like video game. And that's why I think video games are their own unique thing. That's why they have their own audiences, right? When it comes to film and storytelling, it's like, no, we want to tell a story with good characters. So we want to make sure that we're following this character's journey, not choosing this character's journey. And I think there needs to make sure that that is the norm.
I think the question also stands. So, like, just say theoretically, if Bandersnatch wasn't Black Mirror, if it was like released as like a Telltale style game on Steam or whatever, do you reckon it would have as big a following as it is?
Not in the slightest.
No, not even close.
I think the uniqueness of it being like a choose your own adventure thing in like the Black Mirror universe, in the way they did it on Netflix, is what really dictated like how it became popular.
No, the fact that it was on Netflix and Black Mirror attached to it is what made it as big as it was.
Well, if it wasn't Black Mirror and Netflix just bought Black Mirror, I don't think Netflix would have even bothered coding it into the platform.
No, exactly.
Okay, while we're on the topic of platforms, because it's just happened recently, you've got your Netflix, Stan, Foxtel, you've got your Prime Video. Let's talk about the fact that even with Disney Plus, Apple, we've now got binge. Like, is there a threshold here at which there's too many?
I feel like we're sort of getting back into like
this is where piracy happens as far as I'm concerned. If I can't, with a reasonable amount of money, be able to watch all the things I want, I start pirating things.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting back into like the old Foxtel All-Star distribution model of like, if you don't pay like the $12 extra a month for this one channel package, you can't see the content you want to watch. And that's where people, as you said, are going to go back to piracy. I reckon, honestly, the upper threshold for most people is going to be like 2 platforms, because I myself, I have Netflix and Stan. I really can't see myself getting Amazon Prime or like, Foxtel Go. True. Especially since Foxtel Go is like, or Foxtel On Demand or whatever the fuck it is so expensive.
Like, but between the two, Damien and I, like, we managed to get all of them covered so far, but we also write them off on tax as filmmakers.
Yeah, exactly. But like,
I need my Fox Footy and ESPN. So.
Yeah, but like, say theoretically, if you live by yourself, like you'd pick like
you're up to like at least $80 a month if you're getting them all at this point.
Yeah, you'd pick 2 platforms and you would like stick with them until like you get like running out of content, and then you'd move on. Like, luckily, like a lot of them are getting like more and more content that is actually worthwhile. But like, when was the last time you watched something on like Apple TV?
Yeah, I don't even think I've seen anything on Apple TV I cared about yet.
Yeah, exactly. So
I know the Momoa's C thing was meant to be good, but everything I saw about it just said it was a bit.
It also goes which one's going to be creating more original content.
True.
And I think the fact that Disney Plus is now, I think it's probably going to hurt Stan more than anything, because you look in Australia, at the end of the day, everyone's going to go Netflix because Netflix is producing so much original content.
Yes. Right.
At the end of the day, and Stan's trying. I'm a big fan of Stan. Like, I think what they're doing for the Australian industry is fantastic. But at the end of the day, when people would rather tune in to a Netflix series than a Stan series, you know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing as well. So.
Yeah. Well, the other thing as well is though that like Netflix is producing a lot of original content, but they're not exactly getting like, in terms of TV series, like they're getting less and less like bought in content because they want to have control over their platform in their way.
Yeah,
so I guess
I
guess it all matters on like what is relevant to people, because if you saw something really good on TV but it was only available on like Amazon Prime or whatever, then you would want to like get a subscription to Amazon Prime for at least a month. Just
we're going to start seeing one of these platforms going, we're going to stop catering to everyone, we're going to cater specifically to these kind of people and see if we can corner that market, because we know they can only afford.
No. Well, I don't think so.
Not in a big sense, but like I do know for like at least web series distribution. So there's a series that appeared in last year's festival called Welcome to Daisyland. It was completely horror based. It was funded through a platform that released it. Forget what the platform's called, but their entire shtick is that they do horror, because like horror like fans and gore hounds and that.
Nice.
They are a very like big market in terms of like looking for content, because there's not really a lot catered to them that's actually in like
Sounds like Damo and I are about to get another streaming service.
Yeah, so luckily, like that stuff, as far as I'm aware, is like for the most part free. They just run through like ad revenue and like all that sort of stuff. But I can imagine at some point, the Sci-Fi Channel might be like, hey, we're just going to like make a thing, and it's just going to be like Star Wars, Star Trek, and Stargate. The 3 like nerd
Stars.
religions. Yep. And that's going to be it, because like sci-fi in itself is a pretty huge genre that has a lot of appeal. Disney in and of themselves have basically monopolized superhero movies.
They've got everything covered. Sci-fi, they've got Star Wars, superhero, they've got Marvel. Then they've got the kids market covered.
Yep.
Tenfold.
Gee, Pluto!
Yeah.
So, I don't know on a huge scale. I don't know if it'll directly rival anything like Stan on Netflix or whatever, but I can imagine that like at some point or another, there may be like a distribution model that's just like, we're going to focus on this one particular element and we're going to do it really well. So if you want this content, this is who you come to.
All right, so enough about streaming and web series and things. Let's get to know you a bit. And this is something you've got a lot of experience with. You and I work a lot in broadcast at the moment. Can you talk a bit about how having experience, particularly in a different kind of industry that's still related, helps you develop as a filmmaker?
Well, I think that broadcast in and of itself is just like an interesting, like, sort of field, because you've got a one and done. Like, if you miss the shot, or if you don't like capture something, then it's gone forever. Like, there's no way you can get
always
that back.
live. You got to stay focused on the ball.
Yeah. Just speaking personally, it's actually helped me a fair bit, because in the past 3 years, Melbourne Webfest has wanted to do more live content, particularly during our award show and that. So it's definitely helped me sort of help them develop that. In terms of getting it to an acceptable level.
I find even though it's not directly related, it at least keeps me in the game, particularly as I like all the tech side of filmmaking and things. And you find that a lot of the tech fundamentals, frame rates, how formats work, they at least translate over and keep me on the ball of what's happening and what the most popular things are at the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you start using all our audio desk on a film shoot, you've probably gone a little bit too far, but it'll be fun.
Budget, yeah.
Let's hope we don't come to that.
Well, how about you, Dan? Because you also did a fair bit in broadcast as well.
Yeah, I worked in broadcast for what? Fucking 10 years?
Yeah. Any particular skills, qualities there, you reckon?
Fuck.
I mean, leadership would have been a good one for you.
I learned more in terms of... There's a few things you take away. There's a few fundamentals of life that you take away from it, that you learn from it. As a creative, I took nothing from it, but as a, working in teams and coordinating and a bit of producing a little bit, how to run crews, you know what I mean? I think in broadcast, especially the bigger ones, like when you start working on I remember doing an international rugby broadcast where I think we had 30 cameras or some shit, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got the big broadcast team, so you're working with nearly 60 crew, 70 crew and stuff, and how to coordinate and when you're doing things like that. So there's a few little things like that you learn. I did a bit of floor managing, obviously, which obviously helped my AD career.
Yes.
Because there's some few similarities and crossovers there. A bit of the tech shit, obviously, that kind of does translate every now and then, like when you do a bit of tech stuff. I definitely think there's a few things that can help. And the fact that you're still kind of close to the industry, it's not the same industry, but it's close enough. Like, you're going to learn more fundamentals from that than working at Coles, if that makes sense.
I feel like you get a lot of really transferable skills working in broadcast, because as you said, you got your leadership, you've got your team building, you've got your communication, all that sort of stuff actually translates.
In my case, how to fix things on the fly.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people that they solely work in film, and for a lot of them, they may know particular aspects of those skills, but they're lacking in certain areas because they haven't.
I find the broadcast people understand time critical situations, particularly on film sets, a lot better than those who haven't got any experience at all.
The thing is, when you're doing live broadcasting, like you said, you touched on it before, it's okay, we're on air in 30 seconds and something's gone wrong. You're not just going let's stop and think about this.
Yeah.
You need to have backup 1, 2, 3, and 4 ready to go. You got text running out of the truck and shit like that. So
if one of your CCUs gets water damage and the camera goes to bars on air.
When you're doing live broadcast, you understand pressure more than a film set. You know what I mean? I think film's more pressure in a way offset. Like when you're a producer or a director, you're dealing with more stress offset than onset. And I think when you're doing broadcast, it's on the job. You're dealing with a lot of stress and pressure, and one thing goes wrong, and then you got 7 people to blame, and microphones fuck up, and then
But definitely, your producer has a lot of stress, because they want to get people out of there at the call sheet time, because that gives them the 10-hour break so they can get in tomorrow at the time they need to.
10 hour.
Any more than that, and it starts to really eat into it. But at the same time, I can count on no hands how many shoots I've been on that have ended on the exact time that they've said that they want to, because they always go over by hours.
Well, the hardest thing is, but when you look at film, the funny thing about start times and finish times in film, broadcast is a little different. We used to pretty be finish on the mark most of the times. But when you're on film, it's funny because everyone's wrap time, but they don't take into account pack up. So when you're working on the bigger budget stuff, you got to take into account pack up, because you're still paying the crew until they leave.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So that's the difference.
Grips will be another hour and a half.
But when you're working on, I remember working on a first AD to feature film that had a budget back in 2011. And I remember that was the first kind of budgeted shoot I was the first AD on. I'd done a lot of third AD, second AD, and production assistant stuff before that. But as a first AD, there was so much things I learnt on that, because I was like, oh shit, hang on a minute. Just because we wrap at 6 o'clock, the gaffers aren't leaving until 7:15. Because by the time they pack down everything, load their truck back up, so you're taking into account that's in their budget. So you're chewing into the budget if you don't take that into account. you know what I mean, things like that. And I think that you learn a little bit from that from broadcast, because that's the way they work and operate, because you're in the penalties. When I'm on overtime, it's costing the company, NEP, or whoever it was it's costing them money.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I know from experience that, like, basically as soon as, like, the thing wraps, like, you can basically plot out in your head, like, exactly the order things are going to happen, and you can roughly estimate the times that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, you know, for someone that doesn't have a lot of experience with that, like, those things, that as soon as they say, okay, we're going to wrap, that's the time they say that everyone clocks off. But no, you've still got, like, you know, 2 hours to take down. Like, the lights have got to take 10 minutes to cool down.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you got to pack your camera down properly, and you got to make sure everything's accounted for. You got to dump footage, and that could take, like, you know, half an hour sometimes.
Art departments do rigging the sets and set dressings, coming in and out.
Costumes trying to get everyone out of the wardrobe, and like, you know,
makeup artists are cleaning the actors, you know, because they're, you know, shit like that.
And the system changed. You know, it used to be a lot of different times went into, you know, clapper loading back when it was in the film eras, and suddenly that's a lot more effective of just, can I get another digital card over here? Yeah. So timings for things, you know, they evolve as things progress as well. Now, that's actually something that Damon and I came up with, because we mentioned in an earlier episode we were on the cusp of film to digital. You've come through basically a generation behind us. Have you noticed any similarities there in where you started? It was done one clear way, and by the time you graduated, it's already completely changed?
Not really, because the entire time that I've been doing it has basically been digital. Like, so even back when I was in high school, like, we're using Final Cut Pro 6, I believe, at the time, and I think the first Avid I used was like Avid 4, like around that same time. So, and then even through university, like, we switched from like Final Cut Pro 7 as soon as that was getting the bucket kicked underneath it, because Final Cut X came out and shat the bed. You know, I've always been using Premiere for the past, like, let me see, 13 years now. Yeah,
it works, it talks to Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, like, I've always been digital, and like, I've heard people talk about film. Like, my original lecturer that I went through, like, university with, talked about how film used to be like this big monstrosity, and like how hard it was to like sort of work with on particular occasions, and how you'd send off your reel to Kodak and it comes back completely black because someone fucked up there.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So stuff like that.
Or the one where there's a giant line through it because someone didn't check the gate properly about 2 minutes into your 11-minute mag.
Yeah. So stuff like that I haven't had to deal with. But then there's also these other hurdles. So for example, like codecs and that, which for a lot of people coming out of university, they don't really talk about codecs, because
which are actually far more integral than almost everyone realizes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I went up to a university student and said, hey, what's 442 mean? They'll look at me and it's just like, that your penis size or your area code?
Well, for me, it was my first sound mixer.
Yeah, and like, even with like sound mixing, it's just like, you know, you've got varying level of compression.
The sound mixing is ridiculous because the entire thing is just bloody acronyms. You know, I have a 416 via P48 into a 552, which then goes into a 788T. You know, and I want like a 50 kHz on it. You start going, hang on, these all make sense, but how is anyone meant to learn this?
Yeah, so your big hurdle these days is like, you can do more, but you can also like get like the people to do more. Because I've every film that I've worked on, because people knew that I had like good working experience with After Effects and like color grading tools like DaVinci, they're just like, oh, can you do more with this? Whereas back in the film days, like, you had the specialized person that, like, you know, their job was just to do color, or you have one person that like they go through with a little stencil and they cut the person out and they put them on something else.
Rotoscoping.
Yeah. Whereas these days, like, your editor is basically like your jack of all trades. And I've worked on many shoots where the sound person, no offense to them, but they can get hit by a train. And I had to do their job for them as well.
Oh my God, yes. Especially having to do a sound recorder's job in post. It's like, no, you were meant to do it on set. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be tidying it up now.
Well, I actually got a story. It's a bit of a segue. So at one point during like the semester break, they had like a short film festival thing. I ended up working on 3 of the cunts. And all 3 of them, I was originally brought on to just do editing, but then the sound person dropped out last minute, so I ended up doing sound for all 3 of them.
Ouch.
So I ended up having about like 12 credits in the end, like at the end of like the festival, because I was doing like color, sound, like audio and audio mixing, and also like VFX for all 3 films. And at the end of it, like basically everyone came up to me and it's just like, no wonder why you were fucking so stressed.
I think.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things that like now digital has become a thing, and people can like, you know, cross skill a lot easier. And I know you've probably done this a few times where like you've gone from, you know, just doing camera to, you know, maybe editing your own thing because it's so easy these days. You sort of expect yourself to do more in certain regards because you can,
and it's yeah.
Well, there's a lot more you can do, and I think it's the more you do it, the more skills you pick up doing it as well.
Yeah.
And it also helps to learn how other skills and departments work, even if you don't end up making them your main thing. I know, particularly from a sound guy, learning a lot more about how lighting works means, you know, I can usually jump in on a lighting setup without having to mess around with the lighting guys too much, as long as they make the effort to tell me how they're doing it in the block through.
Yeah. And like one of my side gigs that I do is I lecture for both RMIT and Latrobe on occasion. And one of the big things that I always like teach those up and comers is they're like every project you work on, just try and learn something different. Doesn't matter if it's like, you know, a new style of lighting or if it's like a new
Damien's golden rules, keep moving forward with every gig.
Yeah, you always got to like keep sort of pushing yourself to learn a new skill because like, you know, the more time you spend like bettering yourself, the quicker you're going to get into your dream job. Because if you have to like do 3 years of film school and then you suddenly realize, oh, I didn't learn anything, you're already like 3 years behind everyone else.
I also think that's your responsibility. If you're a producer, a director, an AD, pretty much anyone in production department, I think it's your prerogative to learn as much as you can. Yeah. Because how can you run a team if you don't know what the team does? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be an expert in every trade, but you need to know enough in order to know how a set's going to operate and work and where the speed bumps are going to come in.
Yeah, especially a director, like your job is to basically know like a little bit about every department. So that way, if someone says to you, we can't do this because X, Y, Z reason, you know what they're trying to communicate to you because that's the big part of your job as a director is communication. Yeah. So absolutely. At that point, you got to like figure out how can we like fix this issue and what other departments is it going to impact?
Well, every single department represents a tool in your arsenal as a director. So you need to understand exactly what they do. So the grips, you know what I mean? Okay, well, your dollies, your movings, your steady cam, things like that, right? So if you're out of action for this scene, I know what kind of shots I can and can't use right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? If art department, costume, makeup, sound, whatever like that, if Pete's telling me that there's a sound issue, blah, blah, blah. Okay, shit, what are you telling me? ADR, what are we saying? I now need to be able to compensate for that depending on what I can do over here, right? It's absolutely your responsibility as a director to understand that because every single job represents a tool in your arsenal. And as a producer, you're in charge of a team. So if somebody's coming to you talking, you don't understand what they're saying, well, then how are you doing your job as a producer? You're not supposed to be an expert in it, but at the same time, you need to know enough to go, okay, that's factual, that's right. They're not taking the piss. We need to now work how to fix this.
Yeah, well, I reckon on like all three of those short films that I worked on during uni during that one period, I reckon every single time I said, hey, can we do like one more for sound? And they're like, no, we don't have time. And it fucked us in the long run.
So you do have time because ADR.
One thing give me credit for as a director, if sound ever needs one, I always give sound one.
It's because I'm sound and I'm really annoying when I don't get it.
Oh,
I'm pretty annoying.
Yeah, admittedly, because I was like really fresh at the time, I should have insisted like, no, we need to do this. But instead, like we had to do ADR for parts of it. And it was just my responsibility. And also it was painful.
Yes. Well, as I think I've said before, you know, professional actors, directors and sound people all hate ADR. Actors hate it because they've got to get into the emotion of a scene without getting fed. Directors hate it because, well, the actor's not going to get the same emotion. And the sound person usually hates it because, well, they wouldn't have been there if it was done properly and everyone listened to them back on set.
Oh, 100%.
Well, I think this has been fantastic and we've learned a shitload. Thank you very much for coming along, Harrison. Yours or Damien, is there anything else you want to particularly say?
Yeah, so Melbourne Webfest is coming back this year. Their program launch is coming up next month, so feel free to tune into that. They're doing an online event just due to the whole coronavirus stuff.
Great news.
I don't know if the festival has had an official release date yet, but keep tuned for that. There's a lot of good content comes out. So, yeah.
Awesome. And how about yourself, Damien? Anything you want to particularly add to do with Webseries or anything in general we've talked about tonight?
No, man, I think we've covered it pretty well.
You just love Bandersnatch?
Yeah, I fuck Bandersnatch. But no, outside of that, it's been good. Get some good insight, obviously. And just keep at it, keep creating.
And to you too as well, our viewers, thank you very much for sticking with us again. We are, as you can see, back. We're getting more and more people. We are once again listening to your emails at quarantine@88to1.productions and hoping that the insights we're providing here are things that you guys appreciate. So until next time, I've been Peter. This has been Harrison and Damien. And from 88 to 1, have a wonderful time and see you on our next episode.